Today, I'm welcoming two people to the podcast today. I've got Brooke Petersen and Thomas Sitterud. Did I say that right, Thomas?
Sitterud.
Sitterud. All right. Maybe by the end of the interview, I'll get it right. But you're both from Cleveland, Utah. And yeah, that is a place. And maybe, Brooke, put you two into context here. Open it up for us and start us off.
So I'm the Stake Young Women's president of the Huntington Utah Stake. Thomas is the Stake Young Men's president, and he's my brother-in-law.
Nice.
Yeah, we're just from Cleveland. It's just one of the small towns there in that area. And
where would you put Cleveland on the map of Utah for people who aren't familiar with where it's at?
So it's kind of central, but eastern. So it's just south of Price. So nice. Some people know where Price is.
Nice. So a rural area, a farming type of area.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Nice. Very cool. Now, have both of you been in these roles about the same time, or?
Let's see. How long you been?
So I've almost been in mine for 2 years.
Okay.
And
I've been in for a couple months, 5 months.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. And as far as on the stake level, you're sort of the main players of the team that make the youth program move forward, generally speaking.
Boy, we try.
Nice.
It takes everybody. Yeah.
Nice. And Brooke, we want to give a shout out to your husband Hans for who sent the email, who put you in this position, and we're not sure if you're grateful for that yet. Right?
Yeah, that was really nice of him, but he.
Nice. Well, that's the thing about these How I Lead interviews is that, the leaders we try and talk with everyday leaders, and they're not necessarily looking for a mic or a platform to speak about their calling or whatnot, but nonetheless, it helps a lot of people when we do that. So we appreciate Hans and you two as well being willing, and let's see what we can learn here. So how would you describe your stake, just the wards? And maybe Thomas, you can take this one, is how many wards you got, the layout is there any unique characteristics of being a Utah ward?
Sure. So with it being rural Utah, it spanned out. I mean, as far as, geographically speaking, right? So we've got probably the ward furthest away from the stake center is probably, 10, 15 minutes, not crazy, but,
right.
It's kind of spread out there. There's 6 wards in the stake. They're not huge wards, at least not by, Salt Lake County or Utah County standards, but, there's probably, on a given Sunday, each ward probably has between, 130 and 180 attendees. And so, that's kind of what it looks like numbers wise. All of the students this is maybe kind of unique. All of the students that are high school age in our ward go to the same high school.
In our stake
would go to the same high school, mm-hmm. Emory High School. And so that's kind of unique, I think, as stake leaders, right? That you don't have a bunch of different all as far as like a middle school, most of the kids would go to
that
same middle school. And then, so most of our youth are kind of concentrated in those schools. And so we kind of know, their teachers and those backgrounds. So that's a little bit unique, I think, because of the small area.
Yeah. And then on the stake level, are there any like typical or traditional activities that you're sort of planning for every year? Do you have the rotation of a stake trek or anything like that?
Yeah, so we have as far as the Stake Young Men, we're right in the thick of planning for that. We have a Stake Young Men's camp that we do 3 days, 2 nights up in the mountains, and so we plan for that and do that every year. This is my first year, as the Stake Young Men's president, but I've been to it in years past. I think same idea with the Young Women's, right? You got your Young Women's camp each year.
We have I think they kind of started doing stake camp one year and then kind of a ward camp the next year, but last year we did stake camp, and we're planning on doing it again this year.
Yeah.
We have an amazing our stake girls camp leader. She's amazing, and she loves to do it. So she's actually doing it this second year also.
Oh, good. Nice. And Brooke, for you, had you been a ward young women's president before? Just kind of bring that experience into this calling?
So I actually was talking to Thomas about this earlier. This is actually kind of my first leadership calling that I've ever had.
Oh, wow.
And so we were talking about kind of how funny that is, that I just kind of got put right into this, and I'm super grateful. Like, it was probably a risky decision, but I'm super grateful. I love this calling.
Yeah. And, sometimes that can be a benefit is sometimes the experience can be a distraction, or you think, well, that's how we've always done it, so let's do that way. But you come in with a fresh perspective and a unique look on things when you don't have that experience. So it's okay too,
Yeah.
So in this case, Kurt, I'll speak to that. I think it's really helpful. She just has a different point of view, right? I mean, just the number of things that Brooke has introduced with her ideas that now are practices, where she said, hey, should we do this? And here, I'm in there, and I've been in some leadership positions, and we're talking with the councilor in the stake presidency who, helps with the youth, and he's going, oh yeah, why have we always done it that way? Yeah, let's try it, and it's nice because it's a fresher perspective. So I think that's a benefit to the collective, group as we're planning and talking about ideas and talking about the youth.
Yeah. So Brooke, maybe just describe, like, what was that like walking into this role with, sort of your first leadership role? Like, what comes to mind when you think about those first few months or just getting going?
Well, it was definitely intimidating, but I have a personality that I guess I'm not really confident in my ideas, or because I had never had any experience. And so I didn't really know how it worked. I didn't know how it worked in like the state council and things like that. I'd never been a part of any of those meetings, or even a ward council. Like, I'd never been a part of those meetings. But I think one thing that helped is I was really encouraged to give my opinions, or what do you think, Sister Petersen? And I really felt like the support, like I never got any, that's not a good idea, or like I never got any of that. So I always felt supported. They never said, no, we're not doing that. It was like, well, let's try it. And so I think that in that way, being received like that has only helped me be more confident to share when I have an idea, that it's not going to be embarrassing for me. Yeah. So
you feel like now you've sort of found your voice in those council settings?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Nice.
More than the beginning. I'm still not all the way there, but more than when I started. I was really scared when we started, but just everyone just is so supportive. And I think that obviously the youth are high priority. And so I feel like when I was set apart for that calling, I think they respect that and say, she's set apart for this calling. So if I have an idea, maybe it's directed.
Yeah. I love that. So, Brooke, what would you say, just from like, now you're a couple of years into it, like how would you describe just the relationship with you and the ward young women's presidencies? Like, how does that work? Do you have a rotation where you're visiting their wards, or are you calling them? Or are you putting on socials, or what does that look like for you?
So, I think I have a really good relationship with the ward young women presidents there. I can't believe what all of their calling entails. Like, it's huge. But we have ward conferences at the beginning of the year, and so we're able to visit each ward, and as a duo, I guess, we teach. We are able to take over and teach a take over the lesson for them on that day. But because we are in, again, such kind of a small stake, I feel like it's easy. I know all of the young women presidents. I see them around and I have an opportunity to talk to them even when it isn't in a church setting, so I can kind of check to see how their girls are doing, how their activities are doing. But yeah, they're amazing. That calling is such a hard calling, and all of them are above and beyond. Like we're so lucky to have them in our stake and their dedication.
Do they typically come to you with like specific questions or concerns, or is it more just to check in and you helping them be aware of certain resources that are available? Or
I haven't really had any of them come to me with any questions or anything. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them have been in there longer than I have, but actually one of the Young Women's Presidents was one of my counselors and got called as a Ward Young Women President. And she's amazing. And I feel like I almost need to ask them how to do things rather than them ask me. Like they're so good and they know the girls. Like that's the one thing that made me sad when I first got called, is thinking, because it's on a stake level, I don't get a personal relationship with the girls. And that is what I want. And so I have to rely on the Ward Young Women Presidents to get to know the girls. If I have any questions, I have to rely on them. So we've done trainings and stuff for them, but they're amazing. I learn from them more.
That's cool. Thomas, what about you? I mean, I want to say we're in this new world of Ward Young Men's Presidencies no more, and it's bishoprics. And so even though it's not really that new anymore, but I think we're still grappling with it a little bit. So what would you say, like your approach with the stake and ward dynamics? Is there much that goes on there, or you just kind of leave it up to the bishoprics to do their thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think to speak to that new world that we're in, it's just kind of interesting. I was in attended a setting apart just a couple of months ago for a bishop. And when that stake president set him apart, he set him apart for several things. And one of those was the young men's president. And it was very specific, right? On that's a calling and that's a role. And so I know our stake president has done that and sees it that way as well. And so, I mean, we really do look at, the bishop and his counselors as that, one Ward Young Men's Presidency. And so, I have constant contact with the bishops. They're great. With being a high counselor, I travel around to the ward. And I like that because I get to know the bishops a little bit better as well. And so, I probably text with the bishops every week. A lot of it is coordination and announcements, but sometimes there's questions, right? Or sometimes there's, hey, are you hearing anything else from the other, young men's presidents, aka bishops, about like these issues, or are they having, and kind of a landing point for them, where I can try to coordinate that. So that's been interesting, but I definitely respect the keys that those bishops hold, and part of that is obviously as they lead the youth. And so I try to be a resource. I'm new. I'm a couple months into this, so I'm still like, I don't know if I'm really much of a resource, but trying to be a resource. But then also, like Brooke said, trying to still have a connection with the youth. I've worked with the youth a lot in my other callings, and I love it. It's my favorite, thing to do. And so still trying to be a part of that, right? And so when we did, stake young men's basketball, we reffed the games, we're out on the floor. We want the youth to still, know us and be comfortable around us.
Yeah. So one principle you put down here is the concept of the focus on the one. And Brooke, you've sort of started speaking to this just with your interactions with the Ward Young Women's Presidencies and whatnot. Anything else, Brooke, you would add to to this principle that hasn't been said yet?
I think, like I've said, the youth, it's kind of different on focusing on the youth, because you have them for such a short time. You don't really have time to just focus on just one. So you have to kind of focus on the everyone. One of the things that we've kind of implemented that has helped us do this is we send birthday cards. And this was one of my counselor's ideas. Back in December, she just said, I think we should send every young woman a birthday card, every young woman in our stake. And again, this isn't something that our stake's small, so I understand that it wouldn't be possible for some of those huge stakes that they
We're looking at you, Helaman, right?
Yeah. But I actually just said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And I want to know each girl that I send a card to. And so we get a list of the birthdays that are in that month, and we write a card to each girl. And we try to find out, because some of the girls we just don't know, but we try, a lot of them we do, because we'll go and attend the sporting events, the anything that they might be involved in, so that we know who they are, and we can kind of mention the things that we saw them do in their card, and just some characteristics that they have that are special. But I'm really, really thankful that my counselor brought that up, because that was one of the things when I was first put in that I was kind of sad that I didn't know each girl, and it was on a stake level. So it's so hard to do that. But because we're doing these birthday cards and sending them out, I actually do get to know a little bit about each girl, because I have to write, I'm sending a card, and I'm trying to find out stuff about each one. And so I've loved doing that. And I'm so grateful for that counselor that was inspired with that idea. And my counselors are from different towns also in our area. And so we'll kind of say, oh, I know that girl, she is involved in this. And one of my counselors will know some of them. It's really been nice. Because I just feel like I know more of them now, when I would have never had that opportunity otherwise.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, especially from, being in a stake calling. You do sort of feel that separation from these personal relationships, and you do have to come to terms with the fact that, you're not going to be in the daily lives or in even the weekly classes of these youth, because that's just impossible for you to do that, right? And that's why we have ward leaders. But I love this idea of, like, at least once a year, you're sort of having this moment where you're sitting down with a card and connecting through that card with a young woman in the stake. And whether it's learning how to spell her name correctly, or learning that she's on the drill team in the high school, or whatever it is, that's just one additional step that they feel like, all right, somebody knows me to some extent, right? Even though we're not BFFs or anything, right? And that goes a long way. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that's true, but also a step further, when I am watching a basketball game or whatever, then I will recognize them and say, oh, okay, so her birthday was here, and I remember that she played basketball, or that she did drill team. No, it's been cool. Really good.
Now, I'm just curious, the details. A lot of people love to know the details, as far as, like, are these like formal birthday cards that you're buying at bulk at Costco? Is the primary drawing them, or what?
I even brought one, but
nice.
It's kind of, and then it has a little saying. It says, how amazing is it that the same God who created mountains and oceans and heavens thought that the world needed one of you too. And it's just a little picture on the back, so that if they want to, like, kind of even keep it and read that, they can, or they don't have to. They can throw it in the garbage if they want to. That's okay.
So did you make those, or did you buy them somewhere?
No, I think one of my counselors is kind of this amazing person that she I don't know how she she just is that kind of person.
Yeah. She can come up with that.
She's amazing. She's
Yeah.
also the one that came up with the idea of the birthday. But
yeah,
I
nice.
just think in my counselors, there's such a variety, and each one has so much to offer.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
And then do you like split that up amongst your presidency, and everybody takes a turn of writing the girls for that month, or how does that work?
We'll look through the cards, and if there's a card that maybe somebody knows a certain girl better, then they'll take that card and do that card. So yeah. So it does get split up.
And then you just put a stamp on it and drop it in the snail mail? Okay.
A couple days before their birthday, we do.
Love it. Very good. Awesome. Thomas, anything in that context that came to mind that you need to add? Or
the first thing that comes to mind, Kurt, is this kind of feels like a especially when we did home teaching, but we'll just call it ministering, where they give the numbers in the Relief Society. The sisters are like, we're at 99.9%. We're not happy with it. We're over here like, we're a little over 50. This is kind of in context.
Yeah, giving high fives, right?
Yeah, all these amazing things that the young women's.
Yeah, where's your birthday cards, Thomas? How do you do it? You're right.
I can't read my writing.
That's cool.
So one thought I did have, Kurt, is I was just kind of thinking about this. The one is just kind of the doctrinal context, right? We have, what comes to mind for me is Luke 15, when the parable is given of the 100 sheep and losing the one. And just something I learned in studying it this year, in verse 5, and this is, I'll kind of get to why this is important, I think, with our young men, is in verse 5, this is after the shepherd has said to leave the 99. It says, and when he hath found it, the lost one, he layeth it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when I was studying it this year, I had the Spirit teach me that I think there's some symbolism there, and of course it's a parable, so there's a lot. But layeth it on his shoulders, it came to my mind the cross which our Savior bore, that he laid it on his shoulders. And I thought that really what we're doing when we find that one is we're connecting them to him who was put upon the cross, to the Savior. And I think that's the context of, so what do we do when we find the one? I don't know. It's going to be a bunch of different things, but it's going to connect them to their Savior, whatever it is. And that's where, I think from my perspective of working closely with the bishops, is just saying, hey, this youth struggling, and we'll brainstorm some ideas, but whatever that idea is, whatever it is that you have the keys to receive revelation for, it's going to be connecting them to Christ. And so, I think it's an awesome thing, this little thing of reaching out. I think, you look at that message on the card, it's connecting them, to their God, saying, look how special you are. You were created by him. And so, I think those little things are great. I think the other thing is, connecting them to God, but through their wards, through their priesthood, through their bishops, these youth, that's a way of connecting them. And so I'd love to be, have a more creative mind like Brooke, and be able to come up with some of these things. And I think we will develop some of our own, but I think everything we do, we're trying to say, how do we connect them to God, on that one? How do we connect that one? Yep.
Yeah, just that connection is the goal. And if they can form a connection with us, maybe they'll recognize when God connects with them, right? Because that feeling is familiar in other contexts as well.
Like that, yeah.
So you mentioned in your notes, as far as being surrounded by supportive leaders, both local and church-wide and whatnot, how would you want to speak to that?
So I kind of just mentioned that a little at the first about when we have suggestions or ideas, we feel completely supported by our local leaders. But I even had an experience a couple of weeks ago where I ran into Sister Becky Craven, And I was just
in Cleveland. She was in Cleveland.
She probably had been,
but she was in Salt Lake, probably.
She was in Salt Lake, and I was just up there, and I was actually with one of my counselors shopping, and we ran into her and just kind of started talking to her. And the first question she asked is how we were helping our youth lead. And I thought that was cool because that just shows the importance of that principle. And then also, she just sat there and talked to us for such a long time. It was almost like she was treating us as the one, it was, and that extends all the way up, because she never ended our conversation. I sat there and worried, oh my gosh, this is Becky Craven. She's so busy. But I never, ever felt like she had better things to do than to talk to me. And I just thought that was such an awesome experience. And I learned so much from that in the way that you talk to people and react to people. Just you gotta just have time. Like that's how you show them what they mean to you and how important they are to you, is through your actions. Not saying you're important to me, but to show them how important they are to you.
And I bet you walked away from that conversation, obviously being supported, and therefore you're just adding to that confidence that we all need as leaders to face another week, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's cool. Any other? Do we cover that principle pretty well?
I think as Brooke was sharing this with me, I thought we want our youth to feel the same.
Yeah.
We want them to feel confident. So, we talk about this all the time, but it's harder in practice if you have this presidency meeting, whether that's within the deacon's quorum and their advisor or a bishopric member is there and they say, let them lead. We really need to, if it's my thoughts, if it's not contrary to the handbook and it doesn't chase the spirit away, let's try to give their ideas some credence, and cheer them along, because we want them to feel accepted. And I kind of thought of that in the context of Helaman. What a great leader with his army of 2,000 young men. And you really think about the very first part of that story, Kurt, is Helaman is sharing about them, but he refers to them as they, and they had entered into a covenant, and it was those young men who were the sons of these Ammonites, and just all of these little things. But then he goes on to say, and kind of paraphrasing, but he says that they hadn't been a disadvantage to the group, right, to the ward in our context, but now they had become a great support. And I think that, the way that we really let our, young men become a great support is allow them to be a support, right? Allow them to be part of the army, because guess what? Just like the armies of Helaman, they've never fought. They've never had leadership positions. They've never been to war. They've never had, these things where they have to, step up. But once they did, look how the relationship changed between their leader and them. He now starts saying, my sons, my little sons, I'm so proud of them. My sons, my stripling warriors, because he now has ownership in it, right? And that leader does, but it's really because he's allowed them to do stuff, to fight the war, to come in and be part of the leadership group. And so I think that's just a really important part with the young men and young women is letting them join the army, the force.
Yeah, there's evidence of a relationship there, right? That's cool. Well, before we wrap up, any other principal point, story that we need to make sure we tell?
So one of the things that we've started doing with helping our youth have more experience leading, have more experience speaking, when the High Council speaks in our stake, I don't know if that's
each month.
They speak on the third Sunday of every month, most of the time.
Yeah.
But we choose, we ask a young woman and young man to go with the High Council and speak on that High Council Sunday with those 2 High Council members. And
so 6 wards. So we have 3 young women going and 3 young men each month.
And they speak with the High Council. And I feel like that has been such a great thing. And we've had a lot of positive feedback about that. And honestly, I speaking for my young women, nobody's ever turned me down. They've
awesome.
That's not the case for you, Thomas, with the young men?
Just a busy week. No, they've been honestly, they've been so good, and I've been there when they've spoken, and I've spoken with them, and it's just amazing to see, that the High Council, sometimes the dry council, they're up there speaking, and all of a sudden here's a youth, and it really was so cool. I watched an award where all of a sudden all of the teenage kids were like, perked up and listening, and they got through.
That's cool.
So
yeah, we just ask them to share maybe an experience. They talk about the youth theme for the year, Philippians 4:13.
Sounds great.
Yep, they talk about that, and actually, I've had a couple of them have been excited to do it because we do have a youth council. And our youth council is awesome. They come, they talk, they give ideas, and they're awesome. And then we also, like Thomas had mentioned, our high school also is in our stake. So they all go to the same high school. So we have some kids who serve on the seminary council at the high school. And so they speak a lot. And so you kind of start to realize that there's a couple kids that are always the ones that are being asked to speak, and our purpose is to give some of the other ones that don't get the opportunity as much to speak, give them that opportunity, because it's been amazing. I get excited every time of what we're going to hear, because we just don't get a chance to hear from them as much as I would like to, and as probably most people would like to.
I think and we have them, and this may have already come across, but we have them speak in not their home ward, right? In a different ward. So it's a little bit of a stretch. It's a little bit of it's a hard thing for a lot of them, right? But we want to teach them they can do hard things, and we at least have tried to start off with some of the older youth, who might be thinking about missions, and could I do this? Could I really go in front of some people that I don't know really well, and mom's not back there, smiling and whatever. Maybe she is. She might come to that word too. But it's kind of that, giving them that experience, and they've been awesome.
I love it. So is there another speaker in addition to the High Councilman and the youth, or is it just those 2?
So the 2. So we should have been more clear. So it'll be the High Council duo, and then the youth with them. So that'll be those 3. And
do the youth speak first, sort of as that the youth speaker role, as that's often seen?
That's how and I've kind of left it up to the bishopric, but kind of suggested that, and it really sets an awesome tone and it also
gets everyone's attention.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Great idea. Any other tactics or programs or things you've organized that have really blessed the youth?
So, I'll speak to this. When I say it wrong, you tell me. But this is with Brooke having kind of the fresh eyes, right? So we come in I came into the stake, and we have this youth council, and it's kind of like, okay, we have this youth council, and they're always juniors in the stake, and I'm sure there's a reason why that was there, and I think it might be because hey, they're getting ready to be a senior, and they're taking on more leadership roles, and I'm a guy, and I'm also, done some leadership. It's just what we do. And Brooke comes to me and says, so a lot of the younger kids in our wards, sometimes have more enthusiasm than the older ones, and they're more excited, and they're more gung-ho, and they just have stuff to offer. Why does it have to be a junior? And I'm like, let's look at the handbook. There's nothing in there. It was just kind of a stake thing that we've done. And so Brooke said, what if we have, a mix, from these wards, a younger one that, is a younger brother or sister that might be, a deacon, or in the young women's class she's at the younger age, and then maybe an older one. And so we went to the stake presidency member who helps us with the youth, and he says, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I don't know why we can't do that. And so that it's a fresh look, but it's also a way of, again, getting more of the kids involved, and even at younger ages, because we have scriptures replete with God trusting younger kids, right? And it gives them that opportunity to be engaged. So
yeah, it also, I feel like he said the younger kids are more, they have a lot of enthusiasm, and more so even about leadership roles. Like, I feel like they are anxious to take those on, and then they also have the example of how to do it from the older member of the youth council. Like, we love our youth council. They when I first got put in, that was one of the things that they told me is, in the youth council meetings, sometimes it's quiet. Like, nobody wants to say anything, but they said, don't say anything. It has to be quiet until they decide they're going to speak up. And little by little, over the year that they're in there, it starts to just be them counseling. And so it works.
Yeah. Just embrace the silence, right? And
right.
yeah, it'll take care of itself for sure. Well, this has been fantastic. A lot of fun ideas and approaches and principles here. The final question I have for you, and maybe Thomas, I'll let you answer first, and Brooke, I'll have you have the final word. But Thomas, as you reflect on your time as a leader, maybe even in this role, how has being a leader helped you become a better follower of Jesus Christ?
That's a great question. I think it's just been feeling like, sometimes as a leader, you're in those shoes that Christ was in. Like, and what I mean by that is sometimes it can be lonely. Leadership can be lonely. You kind of feel like, oh, this is on me, but that turns me towards Christ, and you think, well, geez, everything was upon him, and he took everything upon him, and he handled it, and he handled it with grace, and he did it with love, and that helps me become a better follower, because sometimes you kind of feel like, to a very, very, very small extent, you've been, in those shoes. You felt, that pressure, or that overwhelm, and that the source of help and overcoming and being better is the Savior, right, and his atonement. And so I think that's where I felt a stronger connection to Christ, and becoming a better disciple and follower of him through leadership.
And Brooke, what about you? How's being the leader of the young women in the stake helped you become a better follower of Jesus Christ?
I think that it's helped me to learn to depend more on my Savior, and know that when I truly don't know what to do, when I don't have the answers, it has strengthened my testimony in the power of prayer more than anything, because I truly feel like there have been so many times that I have been stumped. I don't know what to do. How can I help this person? How can I do this? And I've actually prayed for opportunities to help a person, or I just want to have an opportunity to show my love for this person, or I want to do this. And I've been blessed with those opportunities. I don't know how it works. It's amazing, but I feel like the longer and longer I'm in this calling, I know that it is not even me. It's not even me. It's my Savior directing and guiding me 100%.